Hello. This is the RPG Pundit, the final boss in internet shitlords. Regularly here, I tend to talk about RPGs, but I couldn't be silent about this one show that I like. I'm not going to pretend I'm not a nerdy type of guy, right? But I've never been kind of a head over heels insane fanatic of any specific, science fiction or fantasy genre, story, show, or something like that, with one exception, and that was Doctor Who. See, this is Doctor Who in a much better and more exciting time in the cover of the limited edition Doctor Who RPG, which I helped to create. I was credited as a playtester, but it was actually certain pretty important parts of the system, like, for example, that it runs on 2d6 instead of just 1d6, and the fact that its initiative system, that was something that I came up with. So yeah, I had a big part in the creation of the game. Doctor Who is probably the closest I get to that. I mean, I've played Doctor Who. I've watched Doctor Who longer than I've played D&D. And that's a long time, right? Like a hugely long time. And I've always enjoyed it, I think, on a level beyond even any of the other kind of nerdy genres, more than I enjoyed Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or Star Trek or any of those, for sure, and most superhero sagas, or stories, or whatever you want to call it, most comics. Doctor Who has always just been kind of a special place. And now, once again, the BBC has managed to accomplish what the Master and the Cybermen and the Daleks never could never would be able to, which is to basically destroy that show, right? Well, it was their cash cow. It was their greatest, most popular show. And if you think back just a few years ago, around the time of the 50th anniversary, right, and a little bit before that, Doctor Who had reached a level of mainstream acceptability that it had never had outside of the UK, right? If you're not in the UK, then you may not realize just how little well-known Doctor Who was until very, very recently. It kind of became very popular with the new series, and specifically with the Tennant era of the Doctor, and kept growing in popularity to the Matt Smith era, and then it kind of started to fall apart. Right, and it really collapsed now. Like, basically, nobody is watching the Jodie Whittaker Doctor or the Chris Chibnall series, however you want to put it, because it's horrible, right? It's a horrible series. And the problem is that the BBC, and now the non-UK people might need to understand this, the BBC is a broadcasting public corporation, which means they don't need to care about ratings. They don't need to care about making money. They get their money from something called the license fee. And pardon for the British viewers here that already know this, but it's not common knowledge outside of the UK for most people. Anyone who owns a television in the UK, and you have to prove if you don't own one, right? Like, they're really strict on this, and people can go to jail for this, which is crazy. Have to pay an annual fee of several hundred. More than £100 every year. Every single person who owns a television has to pay that to the government, and that's given to the BBC for the BBC's programming. So this is how they make their money. And for a little while, for a few decades, let's be really fair, the BBC tried to fulfill a mandate of producing quality programming of different varieties, everything from historical dramas to children's programs, which is what Doctor Who started out as, to documentaries, to culture and art shows that served the British public in ways that commercial television was not expected to do. So you could certainly still argue that a forced tax that everyone had to pay seemed very unreasonable, but at least it was serving some kind of a purpose, right? Except that in the last few years, of course, the BBC has become, well, actually in every decade, let's put it this way, every single decade since its inception, the BBC has become increasingly more left-wing, right? It has been subverted and controlled by the Gramscian socialists, first of all, and then by the woke, regressive new left. And they have systematically been attacking all areas. The BBC News reporting is always extremely biased in favor of the pro-EU, pro-globalist, pro-multicultural, pro-woke sort of perspective. BBC documentaries became increasingly like that, where you'll never see a BBC documentary on Christianity where it won't mention the horrific massacres done in the name of the Christian God, and you'll never see a BBC documentary on Islam where it ever will mention the horrific massacres done in the name of the Muslim God, right? So that's just, that's the basic example. And you had most series were becoming increasingly left-wing as time went on. Now, more fool me, I felt that Doctor Who would largely be spared this, because while the BBC has its license fee, it also, it's got only a couple of series that are actually commercially viable and that give them extra income that is of benefit to everyone. And Doctor Who, from the beginning of the new series, was one of these, right? It became a huge cash cow for the BBC with merchandising and selling rights to other networks and convention stuff, all of that, all kinds of things. And it was really just them and Top Gear that were the two shows that were huge international successes that made money for the BBC. And then first the BBC destroyed Top Gear when it got rid of Jeremy Clarkson and company. And now they're determined to destroy Doctor Who. It's very obvious. Chris Chibnall is there to absolutely ruin everything about Doctor Who. And they're not going to care. This is the problem. If they don't care about the extra money and they keep getting their license fee, they just won't care about anything else, right? They'll be... They know that they've just gotten the lowest ratings in Doctor Who history. And that doesn't matter to them at all. They're going to do another season where they're going to up the ante even more. They're going to find more ways to say, well, now in the next season, they're probably going to find some way to explain that the Doctor Who was never a white man, right? They've already done a way of retconning the storyline, supposedly, to say, I haven't watched it because I wouldn't lower myself to do it. But from what I understand, the entire purpose of this last season of Doctor Who was to rewrite the entire Doctor Who story to say, first of all, he's not Gallifreyan. The Gallifreyans were evil colonialists, right? Which, okay, Gallifreyans were always sort of pricks, right? They were always meant to be kind of assholes. The Time Lords, that's why the Doctor ran away from them, because they were stuffy, boring, but they had codes, and non-interference was a major one of them. And they, you can have a show, an episode where the Time Lords are kind of not, where they're up to secretly being hypocrites. Yes, obviously, right? But the whole point there wasn't to do that. It was to say, Time Lords are white people, and therefore they're the evil people that are abusing other, stealing technology from other people. Like, the same way that white people stole computer technology from Africa or something like that, right? Or how they stole, engineering from indigenous Native Americans, and the wheel too, right? Like those things actually existed in those other places first, and then the Europeans took them and somehow also made all evidence that they were ever in those other places disappear, right? So there's that, and then that the Doctor, of course, was not actually the first Doctor, and in fact every Doctor up to Jodie Whittaker was not actually a white male, because if you're not familiar with Doctor Who, why are you even watching this? But if you are familiar with Doctor Who, you would know that in the 13 incarnations of the Doctor, right, I guess 14 if you count the War Doctor, which I sort of don't, but in all those incarnations, Doctor Who has been a white British male, except for Jodie Whittaker, where it's been a white British female. But now the point of this whole entire season was to say that no, actually, the vast majority of Doctors, including the very first one, was a little black girl, right? And then every other one after that, the vast majority of them weren't white and weren't male and probably weren't straight either, if that matters. Although actually, for most of his incarnations, with a few notable exceptions, the Doctor's been basically asexual. So this was their whole purpose, and they were completely willing to sacrifice every single fan to do it. They don't care how many fans they have to, get rid of in order to wokeify Doctor Who, to purify it of its patriarchal Western civilization evil, which is what, to them, all it is, right? And then if it ends up being cancelled, who cares, right? Like, if the BBC after that wants to destroy it, I mean, they could probably keep trying to use it for a few more years of telling stories about how straight people, white people, British people, Western civilization and all that is bad. They could keep doing that because, they got time and they don't need to satisfy anyone. Literally no one could watch Doctor Who and they can keep making episodes. So why not? Just to rub it in the faces of stupid British people that think that Doctor Who is supposed to be for them, right? or for anybody in general, except, the woke SJW crowd. Excuse me. Preparing my yerba mate. So there is no way that the BBC and Doctor Who can both continue to exist. And that is the basic premise of this video. Luckily, there is a chance now, by circumstance, I guess, we've got in Britain right now elected in a huge landslide the Conservative government of Boris Johnson. And Boris has already said, because he realized that the BBC basically went to war with him during his entire electoral campaign, and probably, more accurately, his entire political career, and that they're essentially at war with the vast majority of the British people, that they represent a group that serves no one's interests anymore, except a tiny group of people that despise Britain, despise Europe, despise the West. So, like, why should every single Briton be expected to pay a poll tax of £150 or however much it is, in order to be told that how evil they are, right? Like, why would anyone want to do that? So Boris has decided to propose that the BBC essentially be defunded. What he's saying, in his own words, is to decriminalize not paying the license fee and switch to a subscription model for the BBC. He knows, I know, everybody knows, the BBC absolutely knows, even though ironically on the one hand they're saying, well, no, we can perfectly succeed because of how many, we know how many people of the British people would gladly pay money of their own free will for us to still exist. And then on the other hand, they're saying, but you can't criminalize the license fee or else we'd be destroyed, right? So which one is it, BBC? So they could, at this point, they'll say to the BBC, well, we'll set up a subscription model, and then people can decide if you deserve to exist or not. But everybody knows, the BBC, Boris, everyone, that as soon as that happens, the BBC is going to go bankrupt, right? They're going to fall apart. Either that or they're going to have to majorly cut back on what type of shows they make. And that would end up involving probably selling the rights to Doctor Who, probably to some other company, an American company or something like that. And yes, there'll still probably be some wokeness left over in Doctor Who, but no company is going to look at Doctor Who as of this last season's ratings. There's no, it wouldn't matter how woke the people below are. The people that would make that decision are the money people. And the money people would look at the pathetic ratings they have now compared to the enormous ratings they had, especially under David Tennant, Matt Smith, and they'll go, okay, well, we could do this, but we need it to be like that, not like this, right? So how do we change it? And they would remake it into something. They'd probably figure out a retcon. And that could be anything from, everything that happened in the last season was just a trick by the master. And by the way, we're regenerating to a new Doctor who will probably be a white male because that's what will best sell internationally. That's what people like to watch internationally. A lot of countries, especially countries outside of the West, for some weird reason, even though the West is the most misogynist place in the world, according to SJWs, for some reason in almost any other country, an action series with a female protagonist fails. Crazy, huh? Like, that's so weird. Why would the much more woke cultures, apart from the evil white Western people, not be able to make a series with a female action hero? That's crazy, wild. Anyway, so they'll probably pick a new doctor. They'll do a series. It'll have more special effects. They'll throw more money at it. It'll have some action. It might be a little more American if they sell it to an American company. But I'm sure that at this point, even American companies will be smart enough. They understood enough about like Harry Potter to keep it British enough, right? So I'm sure that it won't be like in the 90s, that one movie that Fox tried to make, which was just terrible, where they had the Eighth Doctor being half human and having having a romantic relationship with the first companion he ever runs into, right? Like that was bad. But Paul McGann was a good actor, at least. At least he was a suitable doctor. And sad thing is, Jodie Whittaker could have been, except from what I understand, like, she's not a bad actress, but from what I understand, she's like totally pushing for this SJW agenda right alongside Chris Chibnall. The two of them are partners in arms. And I was going to say, it really only takes one toxic SJW to completely destroy a legacy of more than 50 years, but I guess in this case it was two, right? So the only way to save Doctor Who now is to get it out of the BBC's hand, because the BBC is just like the university system, just like CNN, just like a whole bunch of these supposed cultural institutions, is no longer savable. The cancer has spread too far. The only way to stop it now is to destroy the host and start something new and different, right? Just build up on that. And maybe in some cases you can transplant some of the best of what used to be in the old system, right? So in the case of the BBC, Doctor Who, and that's basically it. The Top Gear guys have already saved Top Gear by themselves. They just call it the Grand Tour now. But Doctor Who can only be saved by pushing for Boris Johnson, making sure he doesn't wimp out about this. So if you're a British citizen, and that's unfortunately, we're all counting on you, and the Doctor is counting on you. Make a point. I know some of you maybe didn't even vote Tory, right? But if you love Doctor Who and you hate what has happened with it, you have to recognize this is the only chance you have of saving the Doctor. Nothing else will do it. Okay? So you have to make a petition, write to the office of the Prime Minister, really make your voice heard that you do not want to keep being forced to pay that license fee, that you demand that the BBC be defunded. Defund the BBC. That's the hashtag on Twitter and everywhere else. And anybody who isn't British, share that too. Share this video too. Tell your British friends if you're a fan of Doctor Who, or if you just want to stop yet another institution of nerd culture being destroyed by these vermin, right? These parasites that come in and make a living out of deconstructing, and that's their term, right? Just deconstructing onto the point of ruin anything they touch. Okay, this is the way to save it. Get the BBC defunded, force the BBC to sell Doctor Who, get the Doctor Who to be a for-profit enterprise, which will then worry more about satisfying its customers than about its wokeness. And I know some of you are going to say, well, there's been a lot of stuff that was for-profit enterprise ended up being ruined by wokeness too. I can't deny it, right? But it's our best shot right now. And I think more and more private enterprise is starting to get to the turning point where it realizes that wokeness is not a moneymaker that they were promised it was. They had a bunch of middle managers tell them that wokeness was going to be really successful, that was going to make money, that was going to bring new audiences, right? Diversity. What they told them basically was, those stupid nerds will watch anything. And if we make it more diverse, if we make Marvel Comics more diverse, if we make D&D more diverse, if we make Doctor Who more diverse, if we make Star Trek more diverse, then people of color and non-binaries and all these, all the people that aren't straight white males will come and watch it, right? Even though a lot of those people were already, people who like those shows were already watching them, right? Trying to change the demographics of the characters does nothing. But they fell for it because it sounded credible, right? Like, okay, yeah, sure, let's see if we can add to the audience, and this won't lose any audience. But of course it did. It lost all their audience, and nobody new came to replace it. And, all of this stuff applies equally as much as to Doctor Who as it does to D&D, right? So you really want to be careful, because right now D&D is kind of hanging by a thread of going full wokeness. It's not there yet. This is not the worst that it could get. It could get a lot worse than this. So look out, right? And I guess that keeps it being RPG context for today. So I know that normally this channel is way more directly RPG related, but there we go. I guess in the comments, share what you think. Let me know if you have any any comments on or any questions about the Doctor Who RPG and my part in it, or whether you want to help save Doctor Who or not. And how likely it'll be that Boris will actually carry through and defund the BBC like he promised. Let's hope he does. Please share this video everywhere you think people will be interested in it. And please subscribe to the channel. Now, if you're watching this because you were searching for something about Doctor Who, understand most of this channel is about tabletop role-playing games. But check it out. You might like it. Take a look. And then if you do like it, subscribe. And if you want to, besides sharing the video and subscribing, liking the video, those are great ways to help me out. Another great way to help me out is to support me. I do have a Patreon and a PayPal page, but I always tell people the best way to support me, if you are a person that likes RPGs and not just a Doctor Who guy, because I don't make any royalties from the Doctor Who RPG. I don't have any profit from it. But to buy my books like Dark Albion, Lion and Dragon, Cults of Chaos, Arrows of Indra, links are all in the description below. Or my weekly, not my weekly, it was weekly, now it's more like monthly source book series, supplement series called RPG Pundit Presents, which are PDF source books for D&D and OSR type play, where for $2 or $3 you will be giving me a tip, and you will be getting for yourself some interesting material for you to use in your OSR style fantasy or D&D based RPGs, or even sometimes for more generic use in fantasy RPGs. There's all kinds of stuff. There are 99 issues out of RPG Pundit Presents already, so you will find something interesting in all that bunch. Whether it's like weird gonzo fantasy, science fantasy type stuff, or more standard D&D type mainstream fantasy, or medieval authentic stuff that is like Dark Albion, which is really focused on on making the game look and act like the real Middle Ages and not like a fantasy Renaissance fair or something like that. So check all that out. And most importantly, just share the video and subscribe if you want to watch more of my videos. Hit the notification bell, because these days I don't think YouTube promotes me very much. So go to it. Thank you very much. And currently smoking a Davidoff 400 series plus Argento Latakia.